I've been doing this for 15 years now. There definitely is the ability for your brain to build plasticity, improve function. If you're being specific with it, you're looking at all the right things.
There is always hope, and you are not alone.
Welcome to Hope Survives, a podcast from the Hope Survives nonprofit supporting individuals and families navigating life with brain injury. I'm your host, Cristabelle Braden. After my own experience with traumatic brain injury, including multiple re-injuries, I've learned how isolating this road can feel and how hard it can be to find a way forward. No one should have to walk it alone. On this show, we explore the realities of life with brain injury through encouragement, thoughtful conversations, expert insights, and real stories. No matter where you are on your journey, remember, you're never alone, and hope survives.
With a little hope, you can make it through today. With a little faith, someday you'll get through the pain. Just a little love is enough to light the way through your darkest night. Hope survives, a little faith, a little love. Hope survives, a little faith, a little love. Hope survives.
Hey friends, welcome back to Hope Survives podcast. Today we have a great episode ahead with Dr. Jeremy Schmoe, who's here to talk about the cutting edge of new technology in brain injury rehabilitation. We know that technology moves fast, and here in 2026, there are some incredible things that can be done for brain injury, including some cool things about brain imaging, in addition to eye movements, rehab stuff. There's just some really cool features that he's going to be sharing about. So Dr. Jeremy Schmoe is the founder and director of the Functional Neurology Center in Minnetonka, Minnesota. And he and his team are doing big things to change the game for brain injury recovery on a global systems level. And so in this episode, he actually shares his screen to walk us through some new technologies that they are using in their clinic right now. For our audio-only listeners, don't worry, we will make sure to paint a clear picture of exactly what these advanced tools look like. One of the things that excites me so much about this new technology is the hope that it brings for the future of brain injury rehab. That there are so many new things coming out every day that can help us to get better and improve in brain injury. There's so much research being done, and rehab is moving forward at a swifter and swifter pace, and it's very exciting. When I first had my first brain injury back over 15 years ago at this point, there was not as much out there to be able to help people going through brain injury. And I always say that I think if somebody got the same injury that I had today, they would be doing much better in getting the proper treatment. And I'm very thankful that Dr. Schmoe has been a part of my story in helping me to be able to move forward. And so I do have a video that I posted on our YouTube about my journey with functional neurology and using some of the tech, including the VNG goggles. He's not going to talk about those today, but that was a big part of helping my eye movements to be assessed correctly, to be able to get the right rehab and treatment, as well as the gyrostim machine and some other things. And Dr. Schmoe has been on the podcast before. So if you go to our website, hopesurvives.org/podcast, and you just type in Dr. Schmoe, you should be able to pop up some of those previous episodes. But man, it's just so cool how much can be done for brain injury. And I'm so thankful that he's here to share with us today because he's the expert in this. The Functional Neurology Center is a sponsor of Hope Survives nonprofit, and we're so thankful for their generosity for the brain injury community. They really believe in helping people to get a better quality of life, and we are so thankful to have them sponsor our nonprofit, our programs, help us to serve the brain injury community at no cost to the community, and to be able to sponsor our podcast. The FNC offers personalized neuro recovery programs for anyone going through brain injury and a wide range of neurological conditions. When you trust your brain to the team at the Functional Neurology Center, they take the time to get to know the whole you so they can personalize your recovery program for your unique and complex condition. There is hope for a better tomorrow, and the FNC is committed to helping you get back what matters most. Visit the FNC.com for more. Thank you for being here and listening to Hope Survives podcast. If you would like to get involved, we have support groups that happen every month. It's all on our website, hopesurvives.org. We have support groups, we have workshops, we have resources, downloadable resources, a library of podcasts, and more coming every day. We are so grateful to be here to serve and walk alongside the community. And we're so grateful for Dr. Schmoe. And so this is a very cool episode. I really like this conversation, and I know that you will too. So get ready to learn about new technology in brain injury, and let's go over to the interview. I'm here today with Dr. Jeremy Schmoe from the Functional Neurology Center. Dr. Schmoe, thanks for coming back on the podcast to do an episode with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here today.
We always love hearing from you, and we just are so grateful for the work that you do at the FNC and your support of Hope Survives. And I'm just really excited. We're going to be talking today about new technologies in rehab. And this is a topic that's so important because I'm constantly reminding people through the podcast, through our programs, that brain injury research and rehabilitation, the landscape is rapidly changing. There are new things, there are new ways to help, there are new ways to get treatments that didn't exist even 5 years ago. And you, Dr. Schmoe, are on the cutting edge of brain injury rehab, and the work you do at the FNC is absolutely incredible. You're doing things that are just beyond. And so, yeah, I would love for you to just share.
Yeah.
Maybe introduce yourself for those who may be unfamiliar with your work, and then let's go right into it.
Yeah, so I practice in Minnetonka, Minnesota. This is actually the FNC's 15th year in practice. So we're going to be having a 15-year kind of anniversary party at the end of May. If anybody's local here and wants to come to our office and check things out, check out our technology. And when I started 15 years ago, I mean, many of the technologies that we have at our clinic now were not available. We'll go through some like the new virtual reality, like neurocognitive assessments that we're doing, where we can literally like put you in an ice cream store and you got to like serve ice cream and do different things. And it comes up with data on your reaction time and like your cognitive processing and working memory. Some like really, really cool stuff. So we're doing a lot of like virtual reality assessment and training. And then we'll look at some of the newest eye movement technologies that are out there. We have this device called REMOBI. It's from France, and we can actually work your eye movements at different depths. And I'll pull up a video and I'll show it to you guys, because a lot of times with concussion, traumatic brain injury, stroke, mold exposure, Lyme, infections, they affect the neurovisual processing. So a lot of what I look at with people, well, yeah, we look at everything else from structure to gait and balance, is looking at the eyes and neurovisual integration with our technology. And we're also moving into doing research. So we have a research division now at the Functional Neurology Center with our PhD. His name is Dr. Joe Zing. So we are pulling data and looking at, all right, let's look at your VNG assessments. We have thousands of them. And now we're comparing VNG versus our neck care test, which looks at doing, it's a patented butterfly test where you have like a dot on the screen and it's moving around, and you got to move your head and eyes and neck around and try and trace that object. If you have abnormal neck function, like what does your VNG look like? So looking at the integration of these different technologies, and we're putting it all together into a platform, which will be an AI system that eventually you'll be able to go onto this system and then plug in your symptoms, and it's just going to pump out a ton of data about what might be going on with you and what tests you might need to have run, whether we need to look more at your eyes or look more at your vestibular system or maybe look more at your autonomics. And we'll have all these like intake assessment forms that will be on there too, that will be available for people eventually, and it'll be available for providers, but also available, eventually for patients all over the world. So that's really our idea, is to make this stuff accessible to people, not just in Minnesota or not just in the United States, but really anywhere, whether you're in Russia or Czechoslovakia or Germany, that you have access to at least the way that we think. Um, Another thing that we've done lately is open up it's called a provider to provider program. So now we're able to consult with your provider that might be in like Sweden or Norway, sit down with them for an hour and a half, have you in the room and go through our thought process and our assessment with your doctor there, compared to just doing like a virtual with somebody. It would be more hands on. That way we can check things and we can tweak your rehabilitation strategies. And that way we're working more with consulting with your doctor, and it doesn't really affect, state lines, stuff like that. We're doing doctor consultation, and that'll help your rehabilitation. So we got a lot of cool new things that are, in the works right now. I'm working on a book too. So you have a book, hopefully, that'll be coming out before the end of the year, that goes into the whole kind of neuroimmunology of traumatic brain injury and concussion. So that will, help a lot of people. So let's go into like the new tech and the different things that
Yeah.
we're using. I'm just going to play and share my screen here.
Yeah, that sounds great. Dr. Schmo, thanks for sharing all of that and what you are doing and really on the cutting edge of brain injury rehab. And I love that, you're not just trying to get patients to your clinic, but you're really trying to help providers. You're trying to help just the
Yep.
landscape of brain injury rehab in general. I think
Hmm.
that's very important because I just love that you're helping to change the game
Yeah.
for everyone, and that's huge. So
That's the goal. It's like, originally when we first started, I'd say back in whatever, we started in like 2011. Obviously, I want to get as busy as possible. I want everybody to come see me, But the reality is, with how many people there are on the planet, you can't just see everybody. So then you have to think more like higher level, systems level, and how can you help a lot of doctors and a lot of other people. So
yeah.
this is the REMOBI device. This one's from Paris. It's eye
Can you
analytics.
describe for
Yeah.
our listeners who are listening audio only?
Yep. So basically, this is a tablet, and these little dots, they like light up, so they make sounds. So basically, it'll go like beep, 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 and you can jump your eyes back and forth. And many times with vision rehabilitation and concussion and vestibular problems, people have issues with depth. So you wear a set of glasses, we can actually graph all your eye movements as you're doing it. And we might see that you might have had a VNG test or done, like a normal type of ocular motor tracking. People didn't find anything, but they might have not checked your eyes with more depth. So I'm sitting here right now. I have my computer, and then I have the world that's outside. So I look out, and that might mess with me. But if I'm just looking at my computer, I might just be fine. So we can look at that whole kind of depth contamination, what's happening with convergence and divergence of your eyes, and it will print out like results. So here's like eye movement trajectory of a healthy student. So this is looking at their eyes going in and out. And here's a student with vergence problems. So the ability of the eyes to basically converge and diverge. And here is after doing the same student rehabilitation. And I believe this is over like only like 6 to 8 visits. And look at the improvements in their ability of their eyes to converge and diverge. So you can actually get the data on all that.
Can you
So
describe what it looks like for those who are listening?
yeah, basically it's a graph, and the graph comes in when the eyes go in, and then when your eyes go out, then the graph splits, and then your eyes have to diverge and look in opposite directions. So the eyes are coming in together, and then when you look out, then your eyes go out, and then they look out. And that's what the graphs look like. They're basically these blue graphs. You can do before neuro rehab, and then you can also do after neuro rehabilitation. So here's after 4 sessions of 15 minutes neuro rehab with REMOBI, and you can see the improvements in those eyes being more conjugately together, meaning they're linked and everything is focusing the way that they need to do to look close, and then also look far. Um, I'll just play the video here quick, so you can see it. I mean, basically, it's a tablet, and that tablet lights up. This child has some glasses on him that basically gets videos of the eyes. Here you can see this lady moving her eyes, like doing saccades. And then you can actually see what happens when they're moving the head more in like free space. Because other eye testing, you have goggles on and you have to like sit still. This is like free space, like what's more like real world. There's the platform, it's moving around. You can move it from room to room on wheels. And then we'll move it up to this individual. You can slide it up or down. So you could do it seated, you could do it standing. So you could have somebody standing and like running in place as they're moving their eyes at the same time. So it's an audio visual tablet. It has the targets that light up. And then when they light up, your brain has to like improve the mapping of where that is in your auditory and visual space together. So you have to basically hear it and then see it. And then that activates some neurocircuitry that's really important for knowing where your body is in space. And after people have vestibular problems, it's really common to have issues with the convergence and divergence of your eyes. So that's kind of where the device comes in. It's very, very cool technology. So that's one of the things that we've added in more recent. So you could see him just moving his saccades, moving his eyes, and then you could see him doing his VOR, like moving his head, neck, and eyes as he's tracing that object. But the object is like beeping and giving sound, and then that stimulates the brain differently. And her name, this is Dr. Zoe. She's a PhD. She's one of the most well-known and recognized eye movement researchers on the planet. And the first part of her career was all looking at quick eye movements. And the last part here has all been looking at convergence and divergence of quick eye movements at the same time. So just because you've had some eye testing and everybody said everything's normal, it doesn't mean that it's normal. So that's kind of my point of adding in these new technologies is to identify these more functional integrated problems of moving, looking at depth, close versus far, then close and far again. You might pull out some problems with people. Otherwise, you might not have been able to pull the problem out. You might have had a good neurooptometric assessment or a good visual assessment or a BNG or a good vestibular workup. And now we're looking at things with more function. Isn't that cool?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you
Yeah.
so much for sharing about that. And so, can you just explain why eye movements matter in brain injury rehab? I mean, it sounds like we know that it's something that gets treated, but for those listening that might be like, okay, but how does this
Yeah.
apply?
Yeah, so like when we think about eye movements, I just don't think about the eyes itself or just like the actual structure of the eye. Yeah, you can actually injure the structure of the eye itself. You can have changes that are happening with the nerves and the muscles and things like that. But what I'm talking about right now is like central integrated processing of the neurovisual system that involves so many different regions of the brain. So when you injure the brain, for the most part, you are going to affect that neurovisual integration. So you got that side, but then you got the vestibular system. In the vestibular system, these connections of the inner ear and how it fires into the brainstem, they have to talk with the eyes. So everything has to like integrate and link and function appropriately together. If that's not working when you're walking and you're moving around, you might feel slow. You might not know where you are with, an object next to you. You might bump into things. You might start like positioning your body in different ways if your visual system isn't functioning appropriately, or if you have one eye that's slightly higher with a vertical heterophoria higher than the other, you might tilt your head or develop some sort of body posture. So if you have pain, if you have headaches, if you've had a whiplash, like you have to look at eye movements and eye tracking. If you're feeling floaty or rocky or dizzy, like you have to look at the eyes, and you also have to look at your general vestibular assessment and make sure you don't have crystals loose in your inner ear. Look for BPPV or any other vestibular abnormalities, which are the connections of the whole inner ear into the brain. So that's really the name of the game. When you look at neurovisual, you can basically say, is this eye movement abnormality from a frontal lobe problem? If it's from a frontal lobe problem, their saccades might be slow. So their quick eye movements might be slow. And then you would compare that to every other finding. So what else might people have with frontal lobe problems? Well, executive function, their processing, their working memory, their concentration, their focus, like all the things that makes you a human being. You got to look at the eyes, and then you got to look at the symptoms, and then you got to look at other observations as well. So in functional neurology, we try and just put all these things together and go, all right, well, your eye movements are slow. When we have you finger tap, you're like really slow on one side and you have some hesitations. And when you walk, you're like your gait looks slow. You have a hard time turning. It's not like you have Parkinson's disease, but some circuits in the brain, in the midbrain, in the frontal connections, they're not doing so hot. So we need to try and activate those pathways. And then we utilize different technologies to stimulate those pathways to wake them back up and build learning and neuroplasticity. So when you stimulate these pathways, what you're going to do is you're going to basically activate these different genetics that happens in the neurons, and then you're going to develop plasticity. And when you develop plasticity, then neurons that fire and wire together function better. So by working the eyes, you can activate the whole brain, right? By working on the muscles and getting people doing physical therapy or doing different body movements, you're going to activate the cerebellum and all these pathways back up. So we utilize technologies, but we also look at just your everyday normal bedside assessments too. Super important to kind of see the whole big picture and not just look at just one eye test.
Yeah, that's such an important part and such a huge distinction. And I love that the technology assists what you are already
Yeah.
doing and what you already know how to do. So, are there any other technology things you would like to share today?
Yeah, I'll share one other one here. So this is NESPLORA. It's from Spain. It's a neuropsychological assessment through virtual reality. And we could say, all right, let's go to NESPLORA executive function. I'll show you what the ice cream test looks like. We're going to put you in a virtual reality environment. It's really calm in there, so it doesn't seem to really visually overstimulate people. And then when you're in that environment, you're going to have to do different tasks. And when you're doing these different tasks, like making ice cream for people, or like answering the phone, or moving from one scoop to scoop here, it collects a lot of data on your planning, your executive function, cognitive flexibility, task switching between tasks, and then it spits out a really, really nice report. It takes about 25 minutes for it to complete, and then you get the fully automated report on just a variety of different functions. And it's not so fatiguing. I mean, a lot of people in here have probably done neuropsychological evaluations, and they're great and they're very helpful. This helps us come up with data really quickly with planning, working memory, processing speed, cognitive flexibility, and that type of thing. So that's a really cool test. They have a child version of it, so you can go into an aquarium. So you can do the NESPLORA Kids. You go into like a sea aquarium, or you can go into a classroom, and you got to like integrate. You got to think. So I think with the way things are going and the way people are these days, like having more high tech assessments, people like it. They like the reports, they like the data, and then you can, pre and post this stuff and do the rehabilitation. So the rehab might not be just sitting in an ice cream shop and doing this and scooping and doing all these things. We might be doing something simple and basic. So if we're talking executive function and being able to think, you have to not feel like you're floating off the planet. All right. So if your vestibular system is way off, or you think your world is slanted or tilted, kind of hard to move into doing all these cognitive training exercises without going through those initial first steps. But we might be able to figure out that you have a vestibular problem. That improves your blood flow and autonomics. You get better blood flow into your hippocampus. Next thing you know, your memory might just like start to turn on like this, even though you didn't do a million cognitive exercises. Does that kind of make sense? You're looking at your battery, and if you have all these other systems that are off, it makes it hard for your frontal cortex to do the executive function if you can't even look at anything, or if you can't scroll, or when you're walking, you feel like you're getting pulled to one side, or if you feel like you're like on a boat, or if you're floating, like that's the worst. When people don't feel gravitationally connected to the ground, that's when people feel really foggy. They feel really foggy because the autonomic integration of how you're getting the blood flow up to your brain is messed up. And now you have lack of perfusion. So we added in one more technology that I just wanted to share. It's from South Korea, and it is called Oblab, and it basically is FNIRS. So it's functional near infrared spectrography. It's this device that you wear on the head, and it gives us imaging of the brain. So we can look at the frontal cortex, and we can look at the temporal cortex, and we can look at blood flow patterns. So we could see what happens when you're on a tilt table on your back and see what happens in real time, the blood like reperfusing up to your brain as we tilt you. Even though you might not feel abnormal during the tilt table, or maybe your heart rate or your blood pressure was somewhat normal, or people said, I don't know, it's gray zone, like we don't think it's a problem. We could actually look and see what happens with the hemodynamics of perfusion to your blood as we're tilting you. Or we could have you do a sit to stand. And even though your heart rate didn't jump 30 or 40 beats, you might have lack of perfusion. Or you might have lack of perfusion to your brain when you're just sitting there, you're not even doing anything. All right. Because some people don't have all these pure autonomic findings like what you classically would see. And if you have underlying issues like mycotoxin mold, Lyme, infections, inflammation, immune imbalance, histamine responses, that changes vasculature and perfusion into the brain, you might have dysautonomia type symptoms, even though you're not even doing anything. You might just be laying there and not getting good perfusion up to your head or to your brain. So that's why I purchased OBLAB. So now we're looking at, we can do tasks and look at executive function and cognitive things as you're thinking and like saying stuff, and we print out an amazing report. So your imaging might have been normal, your MRI is normal, your neuroquantification MRI that looks at volume, but this is a different test. It's different. And it looks at hemodynamics and blood flow and perfusion. So basically, just how you have a pulse oximeter that you put on your finger that looks at, your heart rate and oxygen. This is like a pulse oximeter for your frontal cortex. All right. When you look at like cost and you look at the more expensive ones that can do the whole brain, I mean, we're talking upwards of like $250,000, $500,000 for some of these devices. This one is around like $50,000 for this device. So if people come for our discovery day, like everybody's getting FNIRS. We're doing cognitive assessments with people if we think that they need it. And now we're doing all these different eye assessments with people. So we're basically trying to make sure that we don't miss anything with individuals, because if you're purely just looking at eyes, so now it's like goes even more in depth. If you're just looking at gait and balance and eyes, and you're not looking at cognitive load and executive function and thinking and dual tasking, like you might miss that there's something going on with that person.
Yeah, this is huge. It's amazing that you can see that kind of imaging and be able to actually see, especially for those who've been told your brain scans are normal. It doesn't mean that your brain is normal, quote unquote normal, right?
Yeah.
So
Oh, for sure.
it's very, very encouraging that this is the direction that brain
Yeah.
injury treatment is going. And thank you, Dr.
Yeah,
Schmoe,
no
for
problem.
not just being on the cutting edge of this and treating your patients, but for being so generous with your knowledge and for your support and sharing with all of our audience. And so if anyone has any further questions, you can email us hi@hopesurvives.org. As always, with any of our podcasts, we're glad to pass anything along. You can also check out the fnc.com to get in touch with Dr. Schmoe and his team at the Functional Neurology Center. Is there anything else you'd like to share? We do have our final words of hope question.
Yeah.
So do
Okay.
you have final words of hope for our listeners?
Yeah, I mean, like I've been doing this for 15 years now. There definitely is the ability for your brain to build plasticity, improve function. If you're being specific with it, you're looking at all the right things. Yeah, you might feel hopeless because, you might be in a location or area where you might not have all of this stuff, but that's the whole goal, is to develop systems and doing virtuals and different things where we can bring this and teach other providers and have education. And I think like give it another 5 years and everybody's going to be thinking this way. So this is where things are going.
I love it. Thank you so much,
Yeah.
Dr. Schmoe, for being here and for sharing.
Thank you.
If you enjoyed today's podcast, we would love if you would consider leaving us a rating or a review. We are so grateful to be able to provide this support for the brain injury community. And if you would like to get connected, please visit hopesurvives.org.